The Grand Hall of the Interstellar Tribunal on Lyra Prime sparkled with an otherworldly luminescence. Crystalline walls refracted light across the vast Colosseum-like chamber, where representatives from 52 galactic civilizations had gathered for the ceremonial decision. Tiered seating accommodated the diverse physiologies of the attendees, from gaseous entities suspended in containment fields to crystalline beings that shimmered in resonance with the hall's architecture. Arbiter Quell, a being of pure light encased in an ornate exoskeleton of rare metals, hovered at the center of the chamber. As presiding officer of the tribunal, Quell's role was to evaluate new species for admission into the interstellar community. Today marked the culmination of Earth's 5-year application process. In Galactic Year 5273, this tribunal convenes to render judgment on the application of Sol 3, known to its inhabitants as Earth. Quell's voice reverberated with formal gravitas. The species designating themselves as human have petitioned for full diplomatic recognition. Dr. Lena Hayes stood alone on the petitioner's platform. As Earth's sole diplomatic envoy, she wore a simple uniform of navy blue with minimal adornment, a deliberate choice to avoid offense through ostentation. Her only accessory was a sealed package tucked under her arm, labeled with a single word, "Oops." The chamber's ambient light dimmed as holographic displays materialized around Quell, showing footage of Earth's previous diplomatic missteps. A human delegate presenting flowers to the binary corporate state, unaware that organic gifts violated their sterile food protocols. Another offering handshakes to the tentacled Xerion collective, ignorant of their taboo against physical contact with non-telepathic species. After extensive deliberation, Quell announced, this tribunal finds Sol 3 culturally incompetent and unfit for formal diplomatic relations. A murmur of agreement rippled through the chamber. Many delegates nodded their appendages in approval. Others exchanged glances of relief. Earth had been a subject of debate for years. Some saw potential in the young species, while others considered them dangerously unpredictable. Hayes showed no reaction to the pronouncement. She simply approached the central dais, placed her package carefully at its edge, and bowed slightly. The applicant wishes to submit a final cultural offering, she said, her voice steady. With the tribunal's permission. Before Quell could respond, Hayes had already stepped back, her ceremonial role complete. 2 security drones flanked her immediately, prepared to escort her from the chamber, as protocol dictated for rejected applicants. The human representative is dismissed, Quell declared. The offering will be processed according to standard containment protocols. As Hayes exited, multiple sets of alien eyes, sensory organs, and scanning apparatuses turned toward the innocuous package. The word, "Oops," written in standard galactic glyphs, seemed almost childishly apologetic. Ambassador Krill of the Xerion Collective leaned toward a neighboring delegate. Typical human naivete, the ambassador hissed through specialized breathing apparatus. Even in defeat, they misunderstand diplomatic etiquette. Ambassador Sci-Fi of the Neutral Observation Collective remained silent, compound eyes fixed on the package. Unlike many present, Sci-Fi had advocated for a more measured approach to Earth's application. Curious, the ambassador noted to no one in particular. Their choice of timing is precise. The package was promptly encased in a containment field and transported from the chamber as the tribunal moved on to other matters. None of the delegates noticed the slight smile on Hayes's face as the doors sealed behind her. In the sterile examination chamber of the Subcommittee for Cultural Review, located 17 levels beneath the tribunal hall, xenopsychoanalyst Merrick supervised the scanning of Earth's final submission. The package had been subjected to every conceivable security protocol: radiation screening, quantum signature analysis, biological containment, and chronometric stability verification. Results indicate no conventional hazards, reported a technician with translucent skin. Contents appear to be organic and inorganic cultural artifacts of terrestrial origin. Destroy it, suggested Security Chief Vorn, a hulking reptilian figure whose species had evolved from apex predators. Rejected applicants have been known to harbor resentments. That would violate tribunal protocol, Merrick countered. The xenopsychoanalyst's three eyes blinked in asynchronous patterns, a sign of intense intellectual engagement. Every offering must be thoroughly documented before disposal. Besides, psychological analysis of human behavior suggests this is likely a genuine gesture of reconciliation. After another hour of debate, the containment field was partially relaxed, and robotic appendages carefully unwrapped the package. Inside lay an assortment of items, meticulously arranged and individually labeled in multiple galactic languages. A care package, Merrick observed, consulting the attached note card. Apparently a human custom of offering comfort items to those experiencing difficulties. The items were removed one by one. A small jar labeled homemade strawberry jam, best consumed on bread or pastries. A simple wooden toy, a spinning top with painted spirals. A collection of printed pamphlets titled Earth Philosophical Schools, a primer. A holographic data crystal labeled For Your Consideration. Activate isolation protocols for each item, Merrick instructed. Begin analysis of the biological sample first. The jam jar was transferred to a specialized containment unit, where mechanical manipulators extracted minuscule samples for testing. Within moments, alarms blared throughout the facility. Violation of Interstellar Protocol 772B, exclaimed the Binary Corporate States observer. The being's dual voice modulators vibrated with distress. Unsterilized biological matter. This is precisely why humans cannot be trusted. Marek's central eye narrowed. Calm yourself. Observer. The sample is contained and poses no risk. It's not about risk, the observer insisted, metal appendages clicking agitatedly. It's about respect for established norms. All biological exchanges must be synthesized in sterile conditions. This was prepared by hand. Similar reactions followed as each item was examined. The wooden toy provoked outrage from the Ascendant Minds delegate, Counselor Tishara, who declared tactile entertainment tools intellectual distractions unworthy of evolved consciousness. The printed philosophical texts were met with horror by Ambassador Krill, who considered physical writing materials primitive and potentially corrupting. These humans, Krill muttered, deliberately mock us with their anachronistic customs. Throughout the examination, Merrick maintained a clinical detachment, cataloging each reaction while instructing technicians to proceed with the holographic crystal. When activated, it projected the image of Dr. Hayes standing precisely as she had in the tribunal chamber. Greetings, esteemed members of the Cultural Review Subcommittee. The holographic Hayes began. If you're viewing this message, then Earth's application has been officially rejected, as we anticipated it would be. The room fell silent. The items in this package represent fundamental aspects of human culture that we believed would be of anthropological interest to your scholarly communities. She continued. Our research indicated that while our application would likely be denied, this gesture might establish a foundation for future cultural exchange. Ambassador Sci-Fi, who had joined the examination out of curiosity, stepped closer to the projection. Magnify Section 2C of the package wrapper, the ambassador instructed. A technician complied, and the imaging system revealed microscopic text embedded in the packaging material. Text so small, it had escaped initial scans. Interesting, Sci-Fi murmured. This appears to be a detailed analysis of binary corporate state nutritional restrictions, including 17 subparagraphs addressing their prohibition against hand-prepared foods. What? The binary observer's voice modules crackled with alarm. And this section, Sci-Fi continued, indicating another area, contains an extensive catalog of the Ascendant Mind's historical positions on tactile learning tools, including direct quotes from their fifth conclave of consciousness. Tashara's normally impassive features contorted. That conclave was private. Its proceedings were never released beyond our inner academic circles. Ambassador Krill pushed forward. What does it say about the Zarian Collective? Sci-Fi's compound eyes reflected the magnified text. A comprehensive analysis of your species' taboos regarding physical documentation, including references to the heresy of inscribed knowledge from your Third Reformation era. The room erupted in chaos as delegates demanded to know what information the package contained about their respective species. Meanwhile, the holographic haze continued her measured address, explaining the cultural significance of each item with scholarly precision. The jam represents our agricultural traditions and the importance of shared sustenance in human bonding rituals. The toy demonstrates our understanding that physical interaction with objects shapes cognitive development. The philosophical texts showcase the diversity of human thought. This isn't a farewell gift, Merrick realized aloud. It's a demonstration. Ambassador Sci-Fi nodded slowly. Not just a demonstration, a carefully calculated one. Every item was selected to probe specific cultural taboos, while the packaging itself contains detailed intelligence on those same taboos. How could they have obtained such information? Tashara demanded. Earth has had minimal contact with most civilizations represented here. That, said Sci-Fi, is precisely what we should be asking. The tribunal chamber reconvened in emergency session 12 hours later. The OOPS package had been secured in the highest-level containment facility, but its implications could not be so easily contained. Arbiter Quell presided over a significantly tenser gathering than the previous day's ceremony. This tribunal will come to order, Quell announced. We address an urgent matter concerning the recently rejected applicant, Sol 3. Dr. Hayes had been summoned back and stood once again on the petitioner's platform. Her expression remained neutral, hands clasped behind her back in a posture of attentive respect. Representative Hayes, Arbiter Quell began, your government's final offering has raised serious questions about Earth's intelligence-gathering capabilities. This tribunal demands an explanation for how your species acquired restricted cultural information about our member civilizations. Hayes tilted her head slightly. Arbiter Quell, with respect, I'm not authorized to discuss Earth's anthropological methodologies. I can only reiterate that our intention was to demonstrate our commitment to understanding potential diplomatic partners. Anthropological methodologies? Ambassador Krill's voice rose sharply. You compiled dossiers on our most sacred cultural practices. We compiled information that would help us avoid offense. Hayes countered smoothly. As evidenced by our previous diplomatic missteps, we clearly had much to learn. Arbiter Quell's exoskeleton emitted a low-frequency hum, a sign of agitation. The holographic component of your offering has yet to be fully analyzed. The tribunal requests your consent to expand its projection to full capacity. Hayes nodded. Of course. The recording was designed for complete transparency. At Quell's signal, technicians activated the holographic crystal at its maximum resolution. The image of Hayes expanded, but then split into multiple data streams that encircled the entire chamber. What had appeared to be a simple recorded message transformed into an immense data visualization, a three-dimensional map of the entire tribunal membership. Lines of connection formed between species, color-coded to represent alliances, treaties, trade agreements, and conflicts. Hovering beside each civilization's representation were detailed annotations, military capabilities, technological specialties, resource dependencies, and, most alarmingly, internal political vulnerabilities. A horrified silence descended upon the chamber as delegates recognized their own civilizations laid bare, not just public information, but closely guarded secrets that should have been inaccessible to an unaffiliated planet like Earth. The holographic Hayes continued speaking as if this revelation were entirely normal. As you can see, We've taken great care to understand the complex interrelationships that define galactic politics. Earth believes that true diplomacy begins with accurate knowledge. This is unprecedented! Arbiter Quell's voice lost its ceremonial cadence. You've conducted espionage against every member of this tribunal. The real Hayes, still standing calmly on the platform, shook her head. Not espionage, arbiter, observation. Everything in that presentation was gathered through entirely passive means, monitoring public communications, analyzing trade patterns, and studying cultural artifacts. Impossible, stated Tashara of the Ascendant Minds. The information about our cognitive development protocols is restricted to our highest councils. Your council members discuss those protocols on supposedly secure channels that emit quantum fluctuations. Hayes explained. Those fluctuations can be detected and decoded with the right equipment. We simply listened. Ambassador Sci-Fi stepped forward. And the information about the Zarian Collective's Third Reformation? Contained in radiation patterns emitted by your ceremonial monuments. Hayes replied. Your species considers those emissions sacred and assumes they're indecipherable to non-telepaths. We developed instruments sensitive enough to record and translate them. With each explanation, the chamber grew more agitated. Some delegates huddled with their aides, whispering urgently. Others stared at the data displays, horrified by the breadth of information Earth had accumulated. The holographic presentation continued relentlessly, moving through sector after sector of galactic space, detailing political structures, military deployments, and economic vulnerabilities with clinical precision. Finally, the hologram of Hayes addressed the tribunal directly. You declared us unfit for diplomacy. We simply packaged our data as a gift, labeled Oops. Consider it our way of demonstrating that perhaps your assessment was incomplete. The hologram dissolved, leaving only the small crystal on the central dais. In its absence, chaos erupted. Ambassador Krill called for immediate sanctions against Earth. The binary corporate states delegation demanded a quarantine perimeter around the entire Sol system. Representatives of 17 civilizations simultaneously requested emergency communication channels to their governments. Arbiter Quell struggled to restore order, the exoskeleton's luminosity fluctuating wildly. This tribunal will recess for deliberation. All delegates will refrain from unauthorized communications until security protocols can be established. As the chamber descended into disorder, Hayes was escorted from the platform by security drones. This time, however, the drones maintained a respectful distance, their weapon systems noticeably inactive. Well played, Dr. Hayes, Ambassador Sci-Fi commented as they shared an elevator to the diplomatic residence's level. The ambassador had volunteered to escort the human delegate, citing neutral observation protocols. Hayes maintained her diplomatic composure. I'm not sure what you mean, Ambassador. Earth merely wished to leave a token of cultural appreciation. Sci-Fi's compound eyes reflected the elevator's soft lighting. A token that has thrown the entire tribunal into existential crisis. Your species has a fascinating approach to rejection. We try to be gracious. Indeed. The ambassador's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. The Neutral Observation Collective has studied your species with particular interest. We suspected you possessed greater capabilities than you demonstrated publicly, but even we underestimated the extent of your intelligence network. The elevator slowed as it approached the residential level. Tell me, Dr. Hayes, Sci-Fi continued, was rejection truly your goal all along? The application, the deliberate diplomatic mistakes, culminating in this revelation? Hayes smiled slightly. I'm simply a diplomatic envoy, ambassador. Earth's strategic objectives are determined by our World Council. Of course. Sci-Fi gestured toward the opening elevator doors. You should know that Ambassador Krill is currently advocating for military intervention. The Zarian Collective has always preferred forceful solutions, We're aware of their tendencies, Hayes replied, stepping into the corridor. Just as we're aware that the Neutral Observation Collective typically moderates such impulses. You seem remarkably unconcerned about potential retaliation. Hayes paused, turning to face the ambassador. Earth has been observing interstellar politics for decades. Ambassador Sci-Fi, we've noted that the tribunal has never once authorized military action against a non-member species that hasn't demonstrated aggressive intent. To do so now would undermine the very principles upon which the tribunal was founded, and expose it to criticism from moderates within your own ranks. Sci-Fi's antennae twitched, a sign of surprised respect. You've calculated the political dynamics with impressive accuracy. Thank you, Hayes said. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to prepare for tomorrow's session. I suspect it will be quite eventful. As Hayes walked away, Sci-Fi called after her. One last question, Dr. Hayes. Why oops? Of all possible labels for such a sophisticated intelligence package, why choose something so deliberately naive? Hayes glanced back with the faintest smile. Sometimes, Ambassador, the best way to deliver uncomfortable truths is to wrap them in disarming packaging. In the secure confines of the Galactic Security Consortium's headquarters, orbiting the distant world of Nexus Prime, 17 delegation heads had gathered in an emergency encrypted session. The orbital citadel's dark energy shielding prevented any signals from escaping, or so they believed. Ambassador Krill's holographic projection dominated the central platform. The situation is clear, the ambassador declared. Earth has revealed itself as a significant security threat. Their so-called care package was nothing less than a declaration of intelligence warfare. Overstatement helps no one, countered Tashara of the Ascendant Minds. What they've demonstrated is concerning, certainly, but not necessarily hostile. They could have used this information for far more damaging purposes. How do we know they haven't already? Demanded the binary corporate state's prime executor. The being's dual voice modules created an unsettling harmonic. They could have been manipulating interstellar markets, exploiting our vulnerabilities, for years. Our economic analysis shows no evidence of such manipulation, Sci-Fi noted, compound eyes scanning rapidly through data displays. In fact, Earth's economic interactions have been remarkably straightforward, almost deliberately transparent. That's part of their strategy, Krill insisted. They want us to underestimate them while they continue gathering intelligence. The longer we delay response, the more they learn. The debate continued for hours, with factions forming along predictable lines. The martial species advocated for containment or direct intervention. The mercantile civilizations worried about economic disruptions. The ancient, established powers counseled caution. We must consider precedent, intoned the elder of the Ascendant Minds, whose consciousness had been preserved for over 7 centuries. No civilization has ever been sanctioned for merely possessing information. To establish such a precedent now would create dangerous implications for all our intelligence services. This is different, Krill maintained. They targeted every member of the tribunal simultaneously and revealed their capabilities publicly. It's not just espionage. It's diplomatic humiliation. Perhaps, suggested Sci-Fi, that was precisely their intent. All attention turned to the neutral observer. Consider the sequence of events. Sci-Fi continued. Earth applies for membership, knowing their application will likely be rejected. They make deliberate mistakes that appear naive, but actually probe our cultural boundaries. When formally rejected, they reveal, in a carefully controlled manner, that they've been studying us all along. Your point? Prompted the elder. Their goal was never membership, Sci-Fi concluded. It was assessment. They wanted to understand how we function as a collective, how we respond to perceived inferiority, and how we react when our assumptions are challenged. And now they know. A troubled silence fell over the gathering. "So what do we do?" asked the prime executor eventually. "We have three options," replied the elder. "We can retaliate, validating their assessment of us as reactionary. We can attempt to isolate them, which their intelligence suggests they've already prepared for. Or we can acknowledge the gambit for what it was and adjust our approach accordingly." "You suggest we do nothing?" Krill's hologram flickered with indignation. "I suggest," said the elder carefully, "that we recognize sophisticated players when we encounter them." On Earth's lunar embassy, Dr. Lena Hayes stepped out of the quantum communication chamber and into the facility's central command center. Holographic displays showed the ongoing tribunal deliberations, secretly transmitted through microscopic quantum receivers embedded in her diplomatic gifts. The World Council, Earth's unified governing body, had assembled to monitor developments. "Dr. Hayes," acknowledged General Patricia Hawkins, commander of Earth's Joint Defense Forces. "Brilliant performance. The Zarian Collective is practically foaming at the mandibles." Hayes removed her formal diplomatic jacket, visibly relaxing now that she was among colleagues. "They're predictable, at least." Ambassador Krill reacted exactly as our psychological model suggested. "What's your assessment of the tribunal's likely response?" asked Director Xavier Okafor, head of Earth's Strategic Intelligence Division. Hayes studied the displays, where alien delegates continued their heated debate. "They're fragmented along traditional lines. The warriors want to flex their military capability. The merchants worry about disrupting trade, and the intellectuals are urging caution." "As expected," nodded Okafor. "And the neutral factions?" "Ambassador Saiti is proving quite perceptive," Hayes admitted. "The Neutral Observation Collective has likely been watching us more closely than we realized. They've accurately deduced our strategy." Council Chairperson Eliana Chen frowned. "Is that a problem?" "Not necessarily," Hayes replied. "The neutrals are committed to observation without interference. They may understand our tactics, but their protocols prevent them from sharing those insights openly." General Hawkins gestured toward a separate display showing Earth's orbital defense grid. "We should still accelerate the Aegis protocol deployment. If the martial factions gain enough support, we could face at least a probing action." "I disagree," said Hayes firmly. "Any defensive escalation would validate their perception of us as a potential threat. Our strategy hinges on appearing simultaneously harmless and thoroughly informed." The council members exchanged glances. Earth's approach to interstellar relations had been controversial since first contact 30 years earlier. While some advocated for rapid integration into the galactic community, the majority had supported the current strategy: calculated observation, followed by controlled revelation. "What's our next move?" asked Chairperson Chen. Hayes pointed to a holographic representation of the OOPS package. "I suggest we reinforce the naive facade. Send a follow-up communication expressing sincere apologies for any distress our cultural offering may have caused. Claim that we had no idea the information was sensitive, that we merely compiled it as part of our anthropological studies." "They won't believe that," scoffed General Hawkins. "Of course not," Hayes agreed. "But it gives the moderates within the tribunal a diplomatic fiction they can use to avoid escalation. The critical element is maintaining plausible deniability, for their sake, not ours." Director Okafor nodded slowly. "Brilliant. We provide them with an off-ramp that preserves their dignity." "Exactly," said Hayes. "The tribunal can publicly accept our apology while privately reassessing their understanding of Earth's capabilities. We remain officially unfit for diplomacy, while establishing a de facto recognition of our intelligence network." "And if they reject the apology?" asked Chen. Hayes smiled slightly. "Then we have contingencies. But they won't. The political cost of escalation far outweighs the benefits, as our package so clearly demonstrated." The Council voted unanimously to approve Hayes's recommendation. Within hours, A simple text-only message was transmitted to the tribunal. Earth extends sincere apologies for any unintended distress caused by our cultural offering. As newcomers to interstellar relations, we remain eager to learn appropriate boundaries. We respectfully accept the tribunal's judgment and hope for continued peaceful observation. 3 days later, the Interstellar Tribunal issued its formal response. Having reviewed the recent communication incident, this body maintains its assessment that Sol 3 requires further cultural development before full diplomatic recognition can be granted. Earth will remain under quarantine for indefinite cultural review. However, recognizing the species' demonstrated interest in anthropological studies, limited observational exchanges may continue under strictly monitored conditions. In diplomatic terms, it was a masterpiece of face-saving compromise. The tribunal maintained its authority by upholding the rejection, while simultaneously acknowledging Earth's intelligence capabilities through the euphemism of demonstrated interest in anthropological studies. The strictly monitored conditions gave martial factions the illusion of control, while limited observational exchanges provided Earth exactly what it had sought all along: sanctioned access to interstellar information networks. When the announcement reached the lunar embassy, Earth's leadership received it with quiet satisfaction. There was no public celebration, no triumphant declarations, only a measured acknowledgement that Phase 1 of humanity's interstellar strategy had been successfully completed. "They still think they're studying us," General Hawkins remarked, watching footage of tribunal researchers cataloging Earth's cultural artifacts with exaggerated caution. "That perception serves our purposes," Hayes replied. "It's far better to be underestimated than feared." 6 months later, in the lunar embassy's newly established Museum of First Contact, a replica of the OOPS package sat in a place of honor. Beside it, a small plaque read, "Sometimes the greatest diplomacy is knowing when to let others underestimate you." Dr. Lena Hayes often visited the exhibit during rare moments of solitude. Standing before the innocuous package, she would reflect on how a simple label had changed humanity's place in the cosmos, not through force or technological superiority, but through the careful application of information and psychology. "Arbiter Quell visited yesterday," said Director Okafor, joining her one evening. "First time a tribunal official has come personally, rather than sending observers." "How did they seem?" Hayes asked. "Cautious, curious." Okafor smiled faintly. "They spent 3 hours studying prehistoric human diplomacy texts. Particular interest in Sun Tzu." Hayes nodded. "They're trying to understand our approach. Should we be concerned?" "No," Hayes said confidently. "Understanding doesn't equal advantage. The more they study us, the more they'll realize that we've been studying them for far longer than they suspected." "And the next phase?" Hayes turned from the exhibit, her expression resolute. "We continue as planned. Limited engagement, careful observation, strategic revelation when necessary. We may be officially unfit for diplomacy, but we've earned something far more valuable." "What's that?" asked Okafor. "Respect," Hayes replied. "Not the formal recognition they bestow on members, but the wary respect given to equals. They'll watch us more carefully now, certainly, but they'll also listen when we speak." As they left the museum, Hayes glanced back at the OOPS package one last time. Such a simple word for such a complex strategy, a deliberate invocation of innocence that had revealed Earth's sophisticated understanding of galactic politics. In the grand game of interstellar relations, humanity had made its opening move. The tribunal had responded predictably, establishing the parameters of engagement. Now, the true dance could begin, cautious, measured, and infinitely more nuanced than either side had initially anticipated. On the package replica, the word "Oops" gleamed under museum lighting, a reminder that sometimes the most powerful diplomatic statement is the one that appears not to be diplomacy at all.
Uh,
3 years passed. Earth's status remained officially unchanged. Still quarantined. Still culturally incompetent. Still denied formal recognition. Yet, subtle transformations occurred throughout the interstellar community. Observation posts established near Earth's solar system no longer maintained pretenses of secrecy. Tribunal research vessels openly monitored human communications, while Earth's own observation platforms tracked galactic affairs with equal transparency. A tacit agreement had emerged, mutual surveillance acknowledged, but never officially discussed. Dr. Lena Hayes had been promoted to Director of Interstellar Relations, overseeing Earth's gradually expanding presence in galactic affairs. Though never invited to tribunal sessions, her analyses were quietly circulated among moderate factions who had come to respect human insight. Ambassador Sci-Fi had become a regular visitor to the lunar embassy, ostensibly conducting anthropological research, but increasingly engaged in substantive discussions about interstellar politics. Today, the ambassador had requested a private meeting with Hayes. "Your latest cultural exchange package has generated significant interest," Sci-Fi began, referring to Earth's most recent offering, a comprehensive analysis of resource distribution inefficiencies in the Orion Arm. Like all Earth's communications, it had been presented as an academic study rather than a diplomatic proposal. "We merely wish to share our observations," Hayes replied with practiced modesty. "Of course." Sci-Fi's compound eyes reflected amusement. "Just as you merely observed that 3 civilizations were being systematically shortchanged in dilithium allocations by the Trade Authority." Hayes shrugged. "Data patterns reveal themselves to those who look carefully." "Indeed." The ambassador's antennae twitched thoughtfully. "The Tribunal's Economic Subcommittee has recommended a complete restructuring of allocation protocols based on your observations. We're pleased the information proved useful." Sci-Fi studied Hayes with the intensity characteristic of the neutral observation collective. "You've established an interesting precedent, Director Hayes. Without formal diplomatic status, Earth has nevertheless become one of the most influential voices in galactic affairs." "Influence was never our objective," Hayes countered. Understanding was understanding that you strategically deploy to reshape interstellar dynamics." Sci-Fi made a gesture that approximated a human smile. "The binary corporate state has begun redesigning its entire approach to biological exchanges after studying your agricultural methodologies. The Zarian Collective has quietly established a division dedicated to physical documentation preservation, while publicly maintaining their taboo against it." Hayes maintained a diplomatic poker face, though inwardly she celebrated these developments. Earth's strategy had always been multifaceted. Demonstrate intelligence capabilities, yes, but also introduce subtly transformative ideas that would gradually reshape rigid cultural boundaries. "Change often begins at the margins," she observed neutrally. "Precisely why your approach has been so effective." Sci-Fi agreed. "Which brings me to the purpose of my visit. The Neutral Observation Collective has been commissioned to conduct a confidential assessment regarding the potential consequences of offering Earth conditional diplomatic recognition." Hayes carefully controlled her reaction, though her pulse quickened. This was an unexpected acceleration of the timeline Earth's strategists had projected. "That would represent a significant policy shift for the tribunal," she noted. "Hence the confidential nature of the inquiry." Sci-Fi replied, "Arbiter Quell would never publicly acknowledge reconsideration, but privately. Certain factions have argued that your continued exclusion has become counterproductive." "In what way?" "Your influence grows regardless of formal status. Some suggest it would be better to incorporate Earth into existing diplomatic frameworks, where your activities could be more conventionally regulated." Hayes allowed herself a small smile. "Bringing the disruptive element inside the tent, so to speak." "A crude but accurate metaphor," Sci-Fi acknowledged. The question before my collective is whether Earth would accept such an arrangement, and whether your behavior would actually change if formally recognized. It was a probing question, carefully designed to assess Earth's true motivations. Hayes considered her response with equal care. Earth has always sought understanding, Ambassador. Formal recognition would simply allow that understanding to flow through official channels, rather than alternative ones. A diplomatically ambiguous answer, Sci-Fi noted, though I expected nothing less. Perhaps the more relevant question, Hayes suggested, is whether the tribunal is prepared to acknowledge that its initial assessment of humanity was incomplete. Arbiter Quell would never phrase it so directly, Sci-Fi replied. The official language would likely reference accelerated cultural development or demonstrated diplomatic maturation. Maintaining appearances is important in any diplomatic exchange. Hayes agreed. Earth would certainly respect the tribunal's need for suitable terminology. Their conversation continued in this vein, ostensibly hypothetical, meticulously phrased, yet addressing substantive questions about how Earth might transition from outsider to conditional participant in galactic affairs. Throughout, Hayes was careful to maintain the balance Earth had cultivated, knowledgeable but not threatening, influential but not domineering, alternative but not revolutionary. As their meeting concluded, Sci-Fi made a final observation. You've rewritten the traditional path to interstellar recognition, Director Hayes. Typically, species spend decades proving their worthiness through conventional diplomacy. Earth chose instead to demonstrate value through unconventional means. We simply worked with the options available to us, Hayes replied. When conventional paths are closed, alternative routes must be explored. After the ambassador departed, Hayes sat alone in her office, watching Earth rise over the lunar landscape through her reinforced viewport. 3 years ago, humanity had gambled on a counterintuitive strategy, accepting rejection while demonstrating capabilities. Now that gamble was bearing unexpected fruit, she activated her secure communication channel to the World Council. Ambassador Sci-Fi just left, she reported. The Neutral Observation Collective has been tasked with assessing Earth's potential response to conditional diplomatic recognition. Already? Council Chairperson Chen sounded surprised. Our models projected at least another 2 years before formal reconsideration. We underestimated the impact of our resource distribution analysis, Hayes explained. It appears to have accelerated internal tribunal discussions about our status. Is this a genuine opportunity or a strategic probe? Asked Director Okafor, ever cautious. Both, Hayes replied. They want to understand our true objectives while simultaneously testing whether formal recognition would make us more manageable. And your response, General Hawkins joined the conversation. Deliberately ambiguous. I suggested Earth would welcome official channels while implying our approach to information gathering would remain essentially unchanged. Well played, Okafor approved. We maintain leverage while appearing cooperative. Hayes gazed thoughtfully at the blue-green sphere of Earth. The next phase will be delicate. If offered conditional recognition, we'll need to accept terms that appear restrictive while preserving our operational flexibility. Can that balance be achieved? Asked Chen. I believe so, Hayes said confidently. The tribunal's structure inherently favors information exchange. It's the lifeblood of their collective governance. They can't incorporate us without granting access to their knowledge networks. And once we have legitimate access, we can expand our influence through official channels, Okafor finished. Precisely. The Council discussed potential scenarios, adjusting Earth's long-term strategy to account for this accelerated timeline. Throughout, Hayes emphasized that humanity's fundamental approach remained sound. Observation before action. Information as leverage. Cultural exchange as a vector for influence. Later that evening, Hayes returned to the museum where the original OOPS package was displayed. What had begun as a calculated risk had evolved into a new paradigm for interstellar relations, one that bypassed traditional power metrics in favor of information asymmetry and strategic revelation. A small group of alien observers was studying the exhibit, carefully analyzing the package's components with obvious fascination. Hayes noted representatives from at least 7 different civilizations, including a junior member of Arbiter Quell's staff. "Remarkable cultural artifact," the staff member commented when they noticed Hayes. "So simple in appearance, yet so significant in impact." "Sometimes the simplest gestures communicate the most complex messages," Hayes replied. "Indeed." The alien's exoskeleton shimmered with formal patterns. "Arbiter Quell has developed a particular interest in human communication strategies. They find your species' approach to information sharing educationally disruptive." Hayes suppressed a smile at the euphemism. "We're pleased to contribute to interstellar discourse, however informally." "Yes, informally." The staff member's tone conveyed volumes of unspoken meaning. Though one wonders how long such valuable contributions should remain unofficial. The comment, clearly authorized by Quell themselves, confirmed Sci-Fi's assessment. The tribunal was indeed reconsidering Earth status, not from generosity, but from pragmatic recognition of reality. Humanity had become too influential to remain officially excluded. "That would be for the tribunal to determine," Hayes responded diplomatically. "Earth respects established processes." As the alien delegation moved on to other exhibits, Hayes remained by the OOPS package, reflecting on the journey it represented, from rejection to influence, from exclusion to potential recognition, all without firing a shot or making a single threat. The strategy had required patience, precision, and psychological insight. It had meant accepting a public posture of naivete while demonstrating sophisticated capabilities through carefully controlled revelations. Most importantly, it had meant understanding that sometimes being officially excluded could provide greater freedom of action than formal membership with its attendant restrictions. Whether the tribunal ultimately offered recognition or maintained the status quo, Earth had achieved its primary objective, establishing itself as an independent power to be respected rather than a supplicant to be judged. The "unfit for diplomacy" label had become meaningless in practice, even if it remained officially in place. Hayes smiled at the irony. In diplomacy, as in so many human endeavors, sometimes the greatest victories came disguised as apparent defeats. Sometimes, the most powerful position was not at the center of the established order, but at its edge, observing, analyzing, and quietly reshaping the rules of engagement. Sometimes, all it took was a package labeled OOPS to change the course of interstellar relations forever.